Hey YouTube, it is league turnover today, and we have two good leagues today. So this afternoon, I will go over the Great League Halloween Cup. So it is unlike last week, which was 500 CP Little Cup. It is the Great League edition, and here we have the Great League Remix. And I always talk about Niantic for their incompetence, and I did when I did the season overview a month and a half ago, because they had in this remix 10 Pokemon that are completely useless this season. So they had Pokemon that were strong last season that got super nerfed that are unusable. Gligar, Annihilate, Poliwrath were all in the remix, which is like, who cares? They got nerfed to the ground. And about a week ago, it was found that they updated the list. So good job Niantic for recognizing that 10 Pokemon that are not used this season are useless, and they replaced it with a few Pokemon that are super top ranked here. So love to see it. So this cup is a Great League 1500 CP with 20 Pokemon banned. And this Pokemon is a mix of some Pokemon that were mostly strong last season that still have play this season, and then a bunch of Pokemon that are just super strong based on kind of this season alone. So those 20 Pokemon are Sandslash, Wigglytuff, Dugong, Kanto, Marowak for Alligator, Azumarill, Jumpluff, Quagsire, Dunsparce, Gastrodon, the other color even though there's no difference, Drapion, Superior, Ferrothorn, Mandibuzz, Greninja, Diggersby, Talonflame, Malamar, Toxapex, and Clodsire. 5, 10, 15, 20, 21. Okay, so there's 21 there. I guess they're just showing that both Gastrodons are... I don't think there's a difference in Gastrodon based on its typing, is there? Because is the third one slightly different? I'm sorry, this is just going to be completely sidetracked before we get into the... I swear we will do top teams and rankings. No, when you go to PVPOKE, it only says Gastrodon. Maybe they just want to show that the colors don't matter, but they normally it doesn't matter whether what continent you get it from. Normally they don't do that. Anyways, those are the 20 Pokemons banned. So what does that mean? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this smaller, because when you look at the rankings, there are some Pokemon that you just see on the list that are like, why is it there? And then it's there because when you look at the list of the Open Great League, it makes sense. For example, we know that Machamp and Pangoro and Machoke, I guess at number 16, were always a top 15 ranked Pokemon because all the other fighters got nerfed into the ground. They're some of the only fighters, so to beat the steals and stuff, they're top ranked. But now Pangoro is number 1 and Machamp is number 5. And why is that? Well, I know I just made it small, but if you look at the remix band, you'll notice an abundance of poison and fairy / flying that are banned. So Wiggly, fairy, Azumarill, fairy, Jumpluff, flying, and then you have Mandibuzz flying. It is half dark, so that'd be neutral. And then you also have Talonflame flying and Toxapex and Clodsire as your poisons, which counter, fighting is resisted by all those typings, right? So with that in mind, having so many of those banned and having flyers nerfed on the previous season means that there's not a ton of answers directly to these Pokemon. As you can see, the other squished in between there are a bunch of fairy Pokemon, and that's why they're so highly ranked, because a lot of the other ones are banned, right? So Pangoro, Machamp, Machoke, answers to Steels, answers to Bastion in the Rock, and Guzzlord in the Dark, Licky Lick is the Say Swap. So lots of things that I can answer as a fighter with not having to worry about the flyers and fairies as much in this meta. So those are the fighters. Let's cover the fairies, because there's going to be an uptick in fighters for the reason I just mentioned. There should be some fairies to deal with them. And you have Galarian Weezing, Carbink, and Clefable as your fairies. I'm doing a quick check. Yeah, so those are your fairies. Again, not just to directly answer the fighters, it is one reason, but it's just these Pokemon in general have a lot of play, right? Fairy Wind buff on Weezing and Clefable, Brutal Swing buff on Weezing, Power Gem buff on Carbink, even though Rock Throw got nerfed. So these Pokemon each have their own strengths. Clefable and Weezing generally pretty spammy with Fairy Wind. Carbink just super bulky, can just out Rock Throw and just take a lot of damage. So that's why they're so highly ranked. And again, not that there are some of the main poisons. I think why they have only one is actually weak to only Clefable is actually weak to poison. The other two neutralize the poison weakness because they are half poison, half rock, so that actually makes it poison neutral. But some of the tougher answers for Carbink, like Clodsire, is banned. And same thing with Weezing, like ground is going to be generally an issue. And the ground Pokemon banned are like Quagsire and Clodsire and Gastrodon, right? So you got a lot of Mud Slap users and stuff banned. So those are poisons. Carbink and ground and rock in Carbink, so they get a little boost here. Okay, I'm just gonna go down to let's just go in order. Steelix I think gets by because of again with the ground ban. I look at Bastion and it's the same. Steelix and Bastion are basically gonna be the same because they kind of share a lot of the same weaknesses. They share a fighting weakness, they share a water weakness, they share a ground weakness. So again, ground. Oh, Diggersby on the list too, right? So Diggersby, Clodsire, Quagsire, Gastrodon, all banned, which means anything weak to ground is going to have a slight leg up than it would normally would in the Open Great League. Hence all those Pokemon in the top 7 here that are weak to ground. A couple of these are weak to water. There's not a ton of water Pokemon. There is a Azumarill. For alligators, one of the best safe swaps with the Hydro Cannons. And there is Greninja on there. I don't know how many people use Greninja in the open. There are some waters that are banned and Quagsire. So you're left with sort of like your Whiscash and Swampert, which will be on some teams here. Gallade. Gallade's such an interesting one because I used Shadow Gallade to test it out last season. And I was so impressed by this thing is so fast with Psycho Cut, the close combat nukes, but it is very glassy. And I think it suffered last year because there's just a lot of flyers. But even with not a lot of flyers this season, it's not that highly used. And I think it's just because how glassy it is, that if you don't one-shot a lot of things, then you're probably just going to be taking it out anyways. But yeah, close combat Leaf Blade hits super, super hard. Psycho Cut charges fast. It's such a hard-hitting Pokemon, but man, it is very glassy. Guzzlord. So again, weak to fighting. Not a lot of fighters. Weak to fairy. Some fairies are banned. Some fairies are still here. Weak to ice. There's not a ton of ice in this meta to start with. So based on that, it's always been like a top-ranked Pokemon because of a few things. Like its bulk, it's kind of a unique typing, Dark and Dragon, and then Brutal Swing got buffed this season, so that's why it's kind of highly ranked. A lot of this list, I'm gonna actually just skip over the majority of these. I'm gonna skip over the buffed ones because the buffed ones are just top metas anyways that got a buff this season. So Marowak, Fire Spin, and Bone Club buff. Golurk, Mud Slap buff. Runerigus, Brutal Swing buff. Golurk already talked about, and then Licky Licky, Rollout buff. So these Pokemon already had risen in the rankings because they got buffed this season. So when you take out 20 of the top Pokemon, then these Pokemon that were ranked in the 40, 50 move up like 20 spaces plus. Then, for Marowak, take off a bunch of those ground weaknesses and water weaknesses that are banned, moves you up a little bit more because you don't need to worry with the top meta. So that is essentially why those Pokemon are all on the list. Sort of the unique ones, Quillfish is an interesting one. It is actually a top-ranked Pokemon in the Halloween Cup this afternoon that you're going to see too. And it's basically because of a couple things. One, even though it is a water, it is half poison. So same story. All those grounds that are not there are gone, so you have better access there and you don't need to worry about that as much. And because you're poison, you resist all the fairies that are in the top 2, and you resist all the fighters in the top. So basically you resist fairy and fighting, which is in the top 5 right here, and you're very, very spammy with Poison Sting, Octail. So that's why it's kind of jumped up in the rankings. Registeel has been a top meta Pokemon since it came to the game, essentially. And I think, again, this is just going to be... how many things are actually weak to ground on this list? Weezing, Carbink, Steelix, Bastiodon, Marowak, Quillfish, Registeel, Weezing again, Steelix again, and that's it. So 9 out of the 20 on this list, even though some are doubles, 9 out of the 20 are weak to ground. So when you have a bunch of the top ground Pokemon banned, you get bumped. Went over the buff Pokemon there. And then Whiscash. Quagsire is banned, and Gastrodon is banned, and Clawsire is banned. So if you want a ground type Pokemon that is not Golurk, Whiscash is still pretty strong. So let's look at some teams. Like always, I try to start with one at the top. I should have started with Pangoro. I do have Pangoro team, but I'm like, Shaman Champion is actually more accessible than Pangoro, because Pangoro is tough to get below the 1500 CP. So put him a champ, you pick up your wins against stuff that is weak to fighting, or you resist like rock, and then you're going to have a problem with fairies, right? Clefable's there, Weezing's there, poison like Quillfish. So I need something for the fairies, and one of the recommendations was Marowak, because Marowak has fire will resist all the fairy type moves, so those two should cover each other's weaknesses. But then you need some answers to some of the other things, and Walrein is a unique one. So when it comes to Pokemon that you want to use in this meta, you need to look at a couple things. What can act as like substitutes, essentially? Like, what is this Pokemon light version of it? So Dugong is banned. The light version of Dugong is Walrein. Not as bulky, got pretty spammy with the ice moves, and you have Earthquake instead of Droron for the coverage. So you can just kind of like, Dugong's a great safe swap. Walrein's probably going to be a great safe swap, just not as bulky as Dugong. So you just need to like plug and place there. So Walrein is a good safe swap. Yes, obviously fighters are going to cause you problems because you're weak to fighting. Same thing with Dugong, right? Fighters are going to, even though you can spam, fighters are going to cause you some problems. But put in Walrein as a safe swap to kind of deal with some of those Pokemon and just be strong. This is like slowly, this one's like almost an OG team. Poison. A lot of the main poisons are banned, right? Toxapex, Clodsire, Drapion. So there's other poisons out there, but Quillfish has jumped up because it's one of the main poisons. And so I'm like, let's go old school. Let's go Nidoqueen. Deal with the fighters, deal with the fairies, has ground for coverage for the steals and stuff like that. If you're going to be a poison, you're going to have problems with steel. You're going to have problems with other poisons. So Swampert, you can use Whiscash, right? Just a mud boy. Will cover some of their weaknesses. And then I was looking through the safe swaps because I was like, okay, generally balanced team. What are the best safe swaps in this meta? And Clefable is one of the best safe swaps in this meta. And it just comes down to, yes, you're not going to have any moves for steel. So Bastiodon, Registeel, they're going to cause you some problems. But, Moonblast does hurt. And you get to it very, very quickly. And Swift is now a nice bait move that you can kind of spam. Again, I don't think it's a good move on Clefable because it does not get same type attack bonus. But in general, it is a good second sort of bait move to have on the Pokemon. Otherwise, Moonblast just hurts a ton. This one, sort of ABB style team. It is Whimsicott, Licky, and Steelix. So Whimsicott lead, Licky as your safe swap. Try and draw out a fighter, Pangoro, Machamp. Beat it with Whimsicott, and then you have your Steelix roam free in the back. The thing is, Steelix can also act as a safe swap. So Licky is obviously a well-known safe swap. Steelix is quite a good safe swap as well. So if you want to, you can run Steelix as a safe swap. You may not draw out, because the thing with Licky as a safe swap is you're for sure going to draw out a fighter because it only has one weakness in fighting. You have a lot of weaknesses as Steelix. You're weak to ground, you're weak to fire, you're weak to water. So you may not draw out just the one weakness, as opposed to Licky, which will just draw out a fighter in most case scenarios. So if you want to run, so it's not a true ABB, but you share that fighting weakness that you can draw out with that. So I was going down the list and I was like, okay, we just had a Yamask research day. Let's look at Runerigus. And again, a lot of grounds out of the meta, a lot of poisons up in the meta. So Runerigus as a ground type Pokemon, but also a ghost, can cover a lot of this meta. Obviously, you're going to have problems with darks. So I put in a fairy and Weezing to deal with the darks, and then also Pangoro to kind of deal with the darks. Now, Weezing is if out of these back end here, Weezing is a very, very good safe swap. It's one of the top ranked safe swaps in this meta. Very spammy with the Fairy Wind. And again, you can run Overheat, so you have steal coverage if you want, or just go Brutal Swing, Play Rough. You can really, really, really spam Brutal Swing, and then the hard-hitting Play Rough there as well. So nice sort of balanced teams and kind of sneaky Pokemon. And the last one here is Tropius, Carbink, Whiscash. I started with Tropius, and I'm just like, okay, you know, there's not a lot of grass in this meta in general, and Serperior is banned and Ferrothorn is banned, so what's one of the top other grass Pokemon? And Jumpluff is banned, so I already went over Whimsicott, and then Tropius is one. Tropius has the flying aspect to it too, so it can kind of deal with the fighters and the grounds that are out there. Otherwise, you still have some problems, which is why I put in Carbink and Whiscash. Carbink gives you some... I mean, Tropius is kind of bulky, but Carbink gives you some bulk. It gives you some fast move damage. That Tropius, unless you're running a Razor Leaf Tropius, but I think you should just run like Air Slash and get to the moves fast. Gives you some fast move damage. Gives you some bulk that you can use as a shield. And then with Tropius weak to like fire and ice, you kind of cover the ice weakness with Carbink with the rock, and then cover the fire weakness. Get in your Whiscash there as another ground boy option there. So I think we'll be playing both leagues. I think both are going to be pretty popular. I honestly have no idea which one's going to be more popular. Let me know in the comments below what you are going to play this week. I feel like people are going to play both. I think we may see more people play. My gut is telling me more people will play Great League Remix for two reasons. One is people just had a bad taste in their mouth with the little Halloween Cup. So they're going to see a Halloween Cup and just have like a reaction inside of them being like, no, I'm not doing that again, even though it's a completely different meta. So that's one. But the second, as you're going to see in my video this afternoon, the top ranked Pokemon is Clodsire. Clodsire is the top ranked Pokemon in Open Great League. It's the top most used Pokemon in the Play Pokemon Championship. So if you're sick of Clodsire and don't want to see that, you come here where it's banned. So that is those two things combined makes me think that more people will be playing the Great League Remix as opposed to the Halloween Cup. But we will see. Let me know in the comments below. At the end of the video this afternoon, you'll see that I kind of briefly thought about like what I'm going to do with the channel. I have decided. So just FYI, I'll give a few more announcements over the coming week. My channel's dead because of a bug on YouTube's end where it's crashed my revenue 80%. So the monetized views that I get is capped at like 500. So I'm getting like $10 for 10,000 views, 2 videos a day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one video on YouTube just to keep growth going and keep people coming to the channel. And I know a lot of people prefer just YouTube as their avenue. So I'm going to keep one free video. If you don't want to pay, understand. There's content out there. I mean, I provide a different perspective, but you know, I will not be mad at anyone who does not want to come for the second video. But at this point, I'm not going to put 2 videos on YouTube while this system is broken. Maybe I'll come back later if they fix it, but I don't think they're going to fix this anytime soon. A lot of us are thinking this can be like a 3-month bug, if not longer. So what I'm going to do, probably beginning next week, maybe like next Wednesday, all my second videos that I would normally put on YouTube are now going to be on a Patreon. And I think it allows me to do 2 things. I think it allows me to, you know, add a different revenue stream that don't have to rely on YouTube revenue, which is now just bugged out and not getting help from YouTube. And the second thing is, I think a Patreon page allows 2 things to happen. I think it allows me to keep the really good teams secret. You know, one of the main problems about being a bigger GBL YouTuber is once you put out a team, hundreds of people use it immediately, and then hundreds of people counter it immediately. So if I have a smaller group of Patreons who know the good teams I'm using, that may help it not be as exposed and you'll be stronger with it. I think that's the first aspect. The second aspect is it allows me to do other stuff. You know, perhaps I commit to like a live stream on the Patreon or like once a month. Perhaps I commit to just doing like other videos. People like the rant videos or talking videos. I can do something just of those videos as opposed to like on YouTube where like I feel like I have to commit to certain types of GBL videos because this is a GBL channel, right? But a lot of you have come to just like me as the personality behind the videos. So I think on the Patreon will be a mix of the GBL teams for sure, with some of the other stuff, and then perhaps some live content as well, just to give you guys actually something that, like an actual perk as opposed to just like, please like support me, which some of you said you would do, and I appreciate it, but I want to provide some value to you guys. Anyways, that's my plan. More info to come. So that is it. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.